Hold on, real quick. Listen, this is the Gray Area Podcast.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, those in institutions whose only solution is revolution. Welcome back to Lights, Cameras, Distraction. My name's Rhinoceros from your boom bap Gene Siskel to your full fact movie pixels. You know what it is. It's a Gray Area Podcast. And we about to get into the Motorcycle Diaries. The biopic of Che Guevara before he became Che Guevara. Right now, it starts in your ear hole. So, ladies and gentlemen, or gentlemen, I mean, this is our first, our first foreign flick, right? And I've been enamored by the story for quite some time because this is Ernesto Guevara's diary that was first published back in 1992. And just a little backdrop, the movie comes out in 2004 with starring Gael Garcia Bernal. And it's a story about a medical student and his friend who travel from Argentina all the way to the north of the continent, right? I mean, this is a very, very, very long trip. There are a lot of mountainous regions. And then the year after, it kind of inspired me to do a little trip of my own with my friend. We did not have as much time. We only did like about a month, but it was no way near was similar. It was a story of observation, a story of engaging a population that has had centuries of inequality forced upon them. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot in the sense of the historical aspect. But again, I want to get into with you guys on how you, before I start doing the historical breakdown of what you guys thought of the movie cinematically, the acting, and things of that nature. So let's go.
I got through about maybe a little bit more than half of the movie, but through watching half of the movie, I picked up a lot of points to talk about. One of the funniest parts for what I did see was there is like right when they leave after the journey, they're on the road and he's writing to his mother, right? Yeah. And he's talking to, he's like, bye. And he goes, I gotta tell you, this fucking bike gets weaker by the day. Yeah. And when they started off, the bike was a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they're leaving the house and this fucking like backfiring. The guy almost gets hit by the bus. I thought that was funny.
Because it's also foreshadowing at how the journey is going to be, right? Because I mean, the first country that they enter, because they're in Argentina, and again, if you guys out there listening, if you can kind of look at a map of Latin America, I do this because of Latin America, but if you can look at a map of Latin America, I mean, first of all, the bike is called the Poderosa, the powerful one. I think it was like a 1929 Norton, right? This is a very old, 1939 Norton. Story takes place in 1952. Like the bike breaks down in the neighboring country of Chile. So they still have the fucking bulk of the trip to make happen. That scene is hilarious because you're right. This is like big, like, yo, goodbye. And as soon as they go, hey, goodbye, they almost get hit by a fucking bus, right? And then like, not even like 10 minutes later, they fall into a ditch of water and shit. It's a crazy journey. Yeah.
I thought that was a good part. I laughed at that. It's funny when, movies can get, subtle little things like that in. I noticed that obviously for the time in the day, it's a period piece. It was a rough time. It was a rough time on the road, right? Yeah. But it made for a promising adventure.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very impactful time for Latin America, right? And it's a period of Latin America where a lot of people are flooding into cities. These two characters, right, especially fucking a real story, which is why I suggested this movie, because it is by far one of the best biopics that I've ever seen. But it's a diary that's written from a concentrated point, right? He writes his own diary, right? So it's not like you can take on these particular interpretations if the story was being written by someone else. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, man, so if someone else is writing somebody's life, then you could just take it. But it's not a very long book. But that adaptation. I think it's one of the best adaptations I've seen from a book into a movie. So the city of Buenos Aires, right? It's at this point, this is 1952. It's a city that is really European, right? This is a very white city in Latin America. Let's kind of connect things to like Killers of the Flower Moon, right? In the late 1800s, this was a city that had cleared out its indigenous population. Like, there was wars on the indigenous population. By the 1910s and 20s, they were promoting heavy European migration. First with the Italians, then the Germans, and then obviously after World War II, mad Germans. That's why when you see them go around and the people they meet, their last names are very European, very German, right? But this was a city that was heavily influenced by Britain, right? In the 1940s, it was called Little Paris because it was also a burgeoning city of the arts, especially in cinema. And then that's where you see that he plays rugby, right? That's the European influence, right? So this is a hub of Britain, European fucking neo-colonization in a sense, right? So we have these two characters. It was a biochemist, Che, at 23 years old, his last year in medical school. It's a story of privilege, even though they mention privilege in this party that they go to and in this dinner they go to, but they are still very privileged. His parents had a fucking movie camera in the 1940s. They're of German descent. This trip never would have happened if they were black or indigenous in Latin America. So we have to understand that, right?
And you know what? You make a good point with that, because there's a scene in the very beginning where he's at the dinner table and he's with his family and he's talking to his mother and he's just explaining to her, you know, this is going to be the trip. Papa's going to take me away from this. And his dad's like, no, you're going back to school. And he basically tells his dad, no, I'm not going back to school. And the next scene is them getting ready to leave. You know what I'm saying? So I think it speaks to privilege and independence, especially in the time.
I mean, it's culminated in this one scene where they run into these two indigenous people, and they're explaining how they had to abandon their daughter to find work in the mines. And the lady goes, she goes, oh, we've been on the road for a very long time trying to find work. These areas of Chile and Peru, these are mining hubs dating back to the 16th century. Like, mining in these places was the center of the Spanish Empire, right? So these seems to me very historically accurate. Where he's like, yo, man. She's like, yo, so why are you guys traveling? Are you guys looking for work? She asks, and he goes, nah, we're not looking for work. And she goes, then why are you traveling? And he goes, we travel just to travel. And she looks at her husband and is like, wow, you just right? And then it's like she looks back at him and goes, well, God bless your travels, nigga, because we hungry. Like, right. Again, there is an obvious point of privilege here.
We hurting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, and then it's a very opportune time for wage labor in a sense. Maybe I'm not saying that correct, but this is post World War II, right? And now the U.S. is a fucking world power, and their influence in Latin America, especially in that scene where he's like, yo, man, this is the whatever mining company that belongs to the U.S., right? He's like, yo, man, we got, the way the guy says it, he's like, yo, man, not only is it the mining company, but we got power, political power, right? And that's the other thing. By 1952, the U.S.'s political influence and support of dictatorships is well documented. So, I mean, to be out there just you and just pointing people out like you was in fucking like you was in fucking Home Depot and shit. Like, you come here. You work for the day. And then if you don't get picked, you go home hungry. There is a town. This is one of those cities. It used to be in Peru. Now it's in what we call Bolivia. But there was a town. There's a town that still exists and it's still around. And it's called Potosi. This is one of the biggest producers of silver for the Spanish Empire. And it said that there was so much silver that was pumped out of these mines that you could build a fucking bridge from Peru all the way to Spain. And with the people who died in pulling out that silver, you can build a bridge of their bones coming back.
That shit crazy, dog.
No, his observation of that inequality is something that you can't put in that movie because this was his diary at 23 years old. But it gives that's why this is dope right here to discuss it, because it gives the opportunity to bring in those historical values into what this guy was seeing, right?
Right.
What else you got?
Okay, so another talking point. I thought it was funny that they were diagnosing people on the road for room and board. So there's there's a point where he's with this older couple, and they seem, you know what, now that you mention it, they seem pretty well off. They didn't seem indigenous, right? And the guy's got a lump on his neck, and Che tells him that it's okay. So the dynamic between these two seems to be like, the friend is more of the soft-spoken kind of, he'll charm you and try to, just put good vibes on you. Che seems to be a straight shooter, right? Yeah. So the dude's got a fucking huge lump on his neck, and the friend is kind of trying to tell him, like, listen, if you let us stay, we could maybe come up with some remedies and give you some advice and point you in the right direction. And the nigga Che is like, nah, that's a tumor, bro, and it's really nothing we could do for you. You should get that checked out as soon as possible. It actually leads into my next part, which is because of that, because he winds up, chasing the old people off, the old man says, nah, you can't come in. Go down the fucking road. There's like a little shack next to a river, and there's some fish. Maybe you catch some fish or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They go down there. His friend winds up pulling the gun out and shooting the bird on some fucking maverick shit, kills the bird. Che goes into the river, winds up getting pneumonia from the shit.
Oh, well, so it's not really pneumonia. It's what it is that he was a asthmatic, and his asthma was horrible. Yet, again, I mean, growing up in Buenos Aires, he had very good doctors and shit, but the asthma is a very, 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 very important aspect of his life. In his youth, in his adolescence, the way that he would be quarantined, he would miss out on particular things, and is what many people, including his parents, contributed to his strengths, right? And as a person, I grew up with fucking asthma, bro. Like my parents used to take me to witch doctors in Dominican Republic, dude, in the mountains, and try to fucking voodoo my asthma away. Oh, that's a good line. They try to voodoo my asthma. Yeah, man, that's just wild. I remember that shit vividly, yo. And I went to super mad ill specialists, and all it took was me moving to Albany and getting fresh air. But it's his asthma was something that really separated him from the family and created a lot of his strengths as a young man, which is why he took on medical studies, right? So jumping into that freezing water fucking ignited his asthma. And what's wild is that, you were absolutely right, straight shooter, right? And he's like, yo, man, the guy's like, yo, dude, you got that $15 this shorty gave you to buy her jeans? Because the goal was that Che was going to end up in Miami and then take a flight from Miami all the way back to Buenos Aires, right?
To the girl.
Yeah. So he's like, yo, man, you got that $15? We can go to the fucking hospital. You dying over here. He's like, yo, I've been dying. Yeah, I know how to deal with this shit. And if you ask me for that $15 again, I'm gonna fucking throw up on you, right? This strength that's developed via asthma, dude. is a wild thing that I've always connected to. But that's that scene. But you're absolutely correct, man. It's he's like the straight shooter while his partner's like, yeah, we're doctors. And at one point he's like, nah, we're not really doctors, yo. He's a biochemist and I'm a doctor student. But I haven't finished my exams yet.
Right.
He remains very honest, and we'll get into how that honesty kind of is his trademark when he gets into like the fucking Cuban Revolution, which is nowhere near the movie, but I'll give an advancement on that. But he is smart, right? Because in the when they continue on their journey, he stops at that newspaper, and he's like, "Yo, I got a plan," and he gives this little story to the newspaper. And again, this is a period in time where people were reading fucking newspapers, right? You know, people did not have TVs, so people were reading newspapers. So when he gives the story to the newspaper guy, the newspaper comes out, and they go to the mechanic. He says, "Yo, man, you know, we're just he plays along. He's like, yo, because we're hungry." He said, "Yo, man, we're two doctors, and we're just," and the guy's like, "Oh shit, let's send me the newspaper." And as we know, people that see other people in the newspaper think people are fucking famous, and they get a place to stay and somewhere to fix their bike.
Nice.
It's again, man. It's there's an understanding of their intelligence. They understand their intelligence, and
they understand the world around them.
Exactly.
They're not naive.
They're not naive at all.
Either of them. And you know what? I think it speaks to their privilege, but what also speaks to their privilege in a very subtle way that the director put this in there, right? Right before he's leaving, his pops pulls him off to the side.
Yeah.
And he hands him a gun, right?
That's the gun they shoot the duck with.
Right, that's the gun they shoot the duck with, right?
Yeah.
But the hint that they are upper class, he hands him the gun wrapped in a white handkerchief.
Yes. Good job. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Even the way the gun is presented is privileged, right?
Right. If you don't, his father has never held the gun. The gun was something in a box under the wherever. You know what I'm saying? It was probably passed down to him. You know what I'm saying? And he hands it to him in a very amateur, you know what I'm saying, kind of way. He stuffs it in his coat like he's stuffing money in his coat. But it also goes to show you the temperature of the time and the trip that they're taking. The father knows where his son's about to go and what he's about to embark on. I thought that was a powerful, very subtle kind of point that they made.
So that's a good point. The journey is bugged out because, like I said, in Buenos Aires, it was a city of European migration. They went down into like Patagonia and then into Chile, which is another city it's another country that has, scattered its indigenous population. But then they get into Peru, which is a nation of indigenous people, dude, right? And well, if it was on the show or not, but I definitely told you where I was. I've been to Latin America, bro, and it's extremely obvious when you're not indigenous, right? You stand the fuck out. So, even in Chile, they're like, they run into these shorties, and the shorty, and he's like, we don't got no money. And the shorty's like, yo, man, you guys are from Argentina, right? Because you could tell someone's accent. That's another thing. Whenever I travel, we're like, yo, where the fuck are you from? And I'm like, oh, man, my Spanish is kind of weird. And they're like, nah, man, your Spanish is good, but I can't pick up the accent. And I'm like, because I have picked up accents from different areas of Latin America, and then I kind of speak it with a Washington Heights hood fucking dialogue. So people always listening to your accent. So when they get in there, the shorties are like, oh, you guys are Argentine, right? Oh. Now I hear the che. Che, when you say che in Argentina, it means friend. But they use it a lot. So the shorties are like, oh, and that's how they go with the shorties. But when it comes to like the indigenous countries, they don't get the same treatment because they're like, yo, man, you white. Fuck you doing over here, bro?
Right. Fuck is you doing around here, bro?
Yeah, B. That's like when you see a white homeless. Yo, dude. So, this fucking bitch ass motherfucker, Sleepy Joe Biden was on 59th Street. I told you that shit. My bad. Right. But I didn't say this. They made me walk all the way around, said that, right? And I'm going around 58, something like that. And I'm getting to like 10th, right to 10th. And yo, there's a fucking homeless white dude, right? In between the buildings. And this fuckface got a fucking, like an air mattress, a bed sheet. And this nigga's reading a book with his feet out. And I was like, oh, that is a different kind of homelessness, bro. You need candles? My man. I was like, yo, you don't know how with this good whiteness you wasting.
Listen, it's crazy.
All that privilege
The
going
homeless
away.
problem is
Yeah,
crazy.
Again, man, living in Washington Heights, we had a lot of New Jersey runaways. And niggas be, yo, man, go back home to your parents. Be what the fuck is wrong with you, yo?
Some people just they feel the need to just, I don't know, man, break off from what I guess is perceived to them to be a weakness, you know, when really it would be a fucking a dream support system for most people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Let them run. Fuck it. Let them run.
Yo, I got a quick ill story on that, right? So, my boy that I lived with for mad years, right? His fucking his uncle gets together with this white chick. This is like in the 80s, B. And they both become heroin addicts. And fucking they end up having a kid, right? And fucking they again heroin addicts, and they both get AIDS in the fucking 80s, right? Yo, my boy's uncle, Puerto Rican from the Bronx, ends up dying. That bitch went back home to Maine. Still alive today, baby. Her family was mad rich, bro. That bitch went back to Maine, left a half Puerto Rican kid down here. This nigga's all fucked up right now. Talking about my mother don't love me. Wild. But that bitch is up there in Maine, living in a mansion, AIDS-free, B.
Listen, man, that's that corporate healthcare will get you, baby. That's what that. When I first figured out that your healthcare, the healthcare that you had denoted the type of physical that you received.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, bro, motherfuckers be going and getting fucking resting heart tests and all type of shit. They put you on a treadmill, all type of shit, bro.
Yeah.
All type of shit for a physical. Regular shit. Oh, you got Medicaid? How you feeling?
Yeah.
You feeling okay? Oh, you not feeling all right? Well, listen. Yeah, take this Tylenol and, you know, listen, I don't know. Call your fucking insurance. Get a job.
So that's a wild point you say that, because this dude Ernesto in the movie Che Guevara becomes an integral part of the development of the social healthcare program in Cuba, right? And it's because of his, and you see that shit in the movie. Made a quick mention. He's like, yo, you didn't even take the Hippocratic Oath yet. But he really approached his craft and his studies with a stern affection to people, and that's very notable in the movie, right? But this is why Cuba to this day has a healthcare system that has helped them survive in the midst of the U.S. embargo that's been going on for fucking 60 years, right? And we see that, like, especially when they get to like Peru, and the guys like, yeah, yo, I got a lady who hasn't seen a doctor in months, and he goes and he's like, yo, man, he gave her pills. And he's like, I knew I couldn't save her, but I wanted her to at least die with dignity. And back to your point, we live in a country where you can't even die with dignity, right? And again, it's a connection that in Cuba it's about respecting life and providing dignity for life, right? And that's that one word that we don't even utilize here when it comes to healthcare, right? Here it's just like, yo, you can't make this payment. I mean, I still get fucking emails and letters from fucking urgent care. I went over there real quick, and dude looked at my shoes like, oh, you should go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, and this motherfucker's charging me. I'm like, fuck you charging me for, dude? You told me to go somewhere else.
They're charging you for sound medical advice.
What if you went to Foot Locker and they were like, yo, we don't got those sneakers here. Go somewhere else. But by the way, you'll be $20. What the fuck? Same shit.
Same, bro. It's all a business. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Everything is a fucking business, but that's because, let's round this out. Let's round this thought out. That's because America's a corporation.
That's why it's called corporate America, Bob.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Speak a little bit more about Che, like after the movie ends.
Oh, so yeah. Perfect. Thank you for that question. So, hold on. I got something for y'all right here. It go like this. Nubia. So, all right. So the trip, I mean, it's a movie. So I read the book repeatedly, and there's particular scenes that you can't really expand on. But one scene that again lends to his ideas of equality is that scene. I don't know if you say you went. I don't know where you stopped at, but that scene where he goes to the leper colony, right? And they're like, "Yo, man, you gotta wear these gloves." And he's like, "Yo, but they're not contagious. They're already being quarantined across the fucking like Amazon." And he's like, "Yo, man, like, so what's the point of the gloves?" He's like, "Yo, it's symbolic." So he's like, "Yo, man, if it's symbolic, then what's the point of doing it? It creates a mental separation." He's like, "You're right. But you know what? The nuns that run this shit, they bitches. And if they see you're not wearing your gloves, they're going to be tight." Again, it lends to the understanding of the control that religion has had over this continent. Right? Because there's a scene there where they didn't attend mass. Right? They didn't attend mass. And when they went to the cafeteria, the nun was like, "You can't eat." And he's like, "What do you mean, yo? I'm fucking hungry." He's like, and she's like, "Yo, but you didn't come to mass." He's like, "Does that make me less hungry?" And he's like questioning her for fucking like altruism. Like, "Yo, man, like, are you not here to help?" And that's the rule. That's the rule, right? Which is a wild thing. Real quick side story. Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico. I went out there with a group of people trying to help. Money, food, mad shit. Yo, we did like a 17-hour day, bro, in the mountains. I lost my fucking boots in the mud. It was crazy. I was so tired. Yo, I fucking hurt, man. We end the day. We fed fucking like 3 communities. We get to our final destination. They're like, "Yo," and the guy's like, "Yo, guys, we appreciate you. If we can only one more thing." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Can we pray?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't do that shit, nigga. You go ahead and pray." But it wasn't God who came down here with a couple of $1,000 in food. It was me, nigga. And I just walked away. Yeah, they're still mad at me. Yeah. The point is, when you start incorporating these religious ideologies into universal health and just helping people, it becomes a fucking issue because you have your own fucking standards. So the point is, the people in that scene, seeing that they were being denied food, right? All the lepers and shit, their fucking fingers are falling off and shit. They go in and they save a little bit of their food, and it's, leave the cafeteria and then give it to them. And they're like, "Yo, wow." The following scene, it is now his birthday. And he's celebrating with medical staff, the nuns, and all this shit. And he's like, "Yo, man, I want to celebrate my birthday with the leopards," right? And for those listening, we don't have lepers anymore, right? We don't have leper colonies. You ever heard of leper colonies? Because we would take these people and we would fucking marginalize them.
Australia was big for that.
Yeah. So he's like, "Yo, man, I want to spend my birthday with the lepers." And he's like, "Yeah, we'll go tomorrow when the boat comes." He's like, "Nah, man, I'm going to do this shit tonight." And he swims across the fucking to be with these people. Now the story has been verified. It's not, it's been verified by Alberto Granado, who fucking obviously lived longer than he did. But the story's been verified that he did this. That he swam across with his asthma and spent his birthday with the leper colony during that trip.
I mean, it's powerful that you have people who on a daily basis receive pretty much zero compassion from the outside world.
Yep.
And they can pull together and, still find humanity and do something kind to somebody who could even have, the funny thing is, I bet they would have done that to him even had he previously abused them in some form?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it's just that caste system that has been part of Latin American development for centuries. It's really strong. I mean, it's really evident, especially when it comes to skin color.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's why the scene before that, you know, his participation in the soccer game and him shaking their hand without gloves. It was one scene where he shakes the hand of this gentleman without gloves, and the gentleman goes, "Doctor, did you not tell him the rules?" And I was like, "Yeah, I told him, but he don't give a shit." And he's like, "Yo, man, you're not gonna give me what you have." And that's the thing. To go back to AIDS, right? Like, my man, we thought AIDS, you could spread AIDS with a spit. Like, we just being that ignorance around that around health that we in this country fucking help, you know, perpetuate, right? And to have somebody say, "Yo, man, that's not how that works," right?
Right.
And by letting you know that that's not how that works, then we're equals in a sense, even though you have this disease. You asked me about Ernesto Guevara afterwards. So the movie ends in a sense where and I'm glad you brought this up with his friend. Is like, he's a little trickster, right? So he was always the one that's like, "Yo, man, you know, we're doctors, and you know, if you give us some food, we can." And even, there was even one scene where he's like, "Yo," they go to this guy's like, "Yo, man, why don't you just stay in the barn with the fucking pigs?" And he's like, "But we're doctors." and Chid's like, "Nah, it's good, B. It's all good. It's all good." So they get to Venezuela, and he's like, "Yo, man, whatever happened to that $15? And he's like, "Yo, dude, I gave it to the indigenous people that we had met, that they were traveling." And he's like, "Yo, for real?" And I was like, he's like, "Yeah, B." Like, because he kept bringing that shit up. He's like, "Yo, we're hungry. We haven't eaten. You need to go to the hospital. Maybe we could stay at a hotel." And he kept saying, like, the other guy, his friend Alberto, kept saying, "Yo, we can live like real people," right? This idea of real people is also a European thing, right? Because now, what does that mean? If you want to live like real people, that you're living among savages, right? And I in my own personal life, I've learned so much from this man, right? That in situations where I had to sleep on the floor, and he's like, "Yo, my man, other people have done it. Shut the fuck up, man up, and do it," right? So he tells him, he's like, "Yo, I'm not even gonna get this bitch those jeans, bro. I gave those $15 away." And he's like, "Oh shit." So yeah. So what happens is, he gets on that plane, ends up in Miami, which, by his account, is one of the worst experiences he's ever had. First time in the U.S. And this is what, 1952. So he's like, "Yo, man, this is one of the worst experiences." Now he comes back to Argentina. Here's the backstory. 1952 is a wild, wild time for this idea of populism. Populism, which if people were using that term very much when it came to faggot ass Trump, but populism was a very, very, very large movement in Latin America. And at that time, one of the largest movements was that of Peronism, as they call it. To this day, there are people in Argentina who call themselves Peronists. This is a movement from the fucking 1950s, and people still call themselves Peronists. So you have to understand the impact that this movement had, right? And it was big because of one person. And it wasn't even Juan Perón, who was the dude himself with his name. It was the person that we know as Evita. Remember that? Madonna played her in the movie. Evita.
Yep. Evita.
Evita Perón. Angela Weber made like $40 billion off of her, which is why in the Angela Weber play, he actually has this like cross meaning of Che Guevara and Evita, which is not factual. Evita dies in 1952 from some ill no one's ever heard of cancer. But the thing is that Evita had created a workers' movement. So a lot of people were coming into Buenos Aires, and she was giving money to poor people on the spot. She was trying to develop programs for poor people to get jobs. For fucking, she built a fucking building for the labor unions. She was of the people, and her husband was not. Like, that motherfucker was part of the big land owning elites. So Che comes back.
Caudilloism is what you said.
Yes, like Diane, like the caudillos, and Argentina was actually a very big caudillo state. Like they had a civil war with the Federalists and the Unitarians. When the Federalists they wanted to keep power within land owning cattle ranchers, and the Unitarians were those that were supported by the U.S. and Britain, the liberals that were merchants, right? And this fucking war in the latter half of the 18th century, after fucking the Civil War here, really, caused the development of capitalist expansion into Argentina. So he comes back in 52, right? He comes back, finishes his studies. Quickly after that, he's like, yo, I'm out again. And there's a thing about having an experience, especially when it comes to an experience in a journey, right? It's never going to be the same. So now he heads out to Latin America now, maybe 53. And this is the time where Fidel Castro in Cuba had attacked the barracks. And he's like, yo, we need armed revolution here because all we get is U.S. imposed dictators. This is not part of anybody's idea here yet. But Che leaves, breaks out, and starts going back and starts hitting different spots in Latin America. And at one point goes into Bolivia, and the Bolivians had a miners' revolution in 1952. And goes there to see what that revolution is about. And when he gets there, what he sees is the administration of the revolution spraying their workers with pesticide. And he's like, yo, this is not a revolution. This is a bourgeois demonstration of elitism. And he keeps moving up. But now there is a further push of dictators, right? There's a further push of American expansion in Latin America. So in 1954, he gets to Guatemala. And in Guatemala, there is a populist president voted in. His name was Jacobo Arbenz. And he gets voted in. And Jacobo Arbenz is like, yo, first of all, Central America was part of Mexico, broken up. And these nations, till this day, do not have the raw materials to extend them into other economies. What I mean by that is that they are agricultural economies, right? So he gets into office of Jacobo Arbenz, and in 54 he says, yo, United Fruit Company, you have you have so much land. You have more land than anybody in our little ass country. This is a period as well that many nations, they weren't industrialized yet. That's why we have to understand that the U.S. and Britain owned ideas and patents for industrialization. So you just couldn't go out there and be like, oh, you know what, yo, I'm gonna start making cars. Like, yeah, what machines you got? Like, it's not that easy. They had to sell you the machine. That's why, even today in military shit, when the U.S. sells you weapons or sells you fighter jets, yo, man, you know how long that contract is? Because they have to sell you the training, the parts, the services. That shit is, you work for a dealer, right? We got you for a couple of years on this bitch.
Especially them big arms contracts.
Exactly. So he says, yo, man, and this is a thing, please look this up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. The United Fruit Company, which was known as the Octopus in Latin America because they controlled not only governments, but they controlled radio, they controlled railways, they controlled docks. So everything they control. And they, Alcobar Ben says, yo, listen, man, you guys have all this land that you're not even using. Why don't you let me pay you for this land so I can give it to these peasants, right? So they can farm and we can build our own economy. And I'll pay you what you said it was worth on your revenue sheets. These motherfuckers come back and go, well, you know, we didn't really mean it meant that it cost that much, right? So if they put down that these hectares of land cost $100,000, when he made that offer, they were like, nah, it's really $1 million. We forgot a zero, type shit. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, man, nah. And when he was like, nah, but you put down here that it cost this. Let me pay you this. They were like, nah, man, you gotta pay us what we want. And obviously it was a tool to be like, yo, you're never going to meet our offer, right? And again, it goes back to what we were discussing, like the instance, right? So what do you do when someone is trying to fucking punk you, bro? What's the next step as a man? But unfortunately, Alcobar Benz was not a rebel. He was, you know, he was of the elite. So he's like, yo, man, I'm just gonna pay you what you said. And the U.S. at the time, the fucking the United Fruit Company was ran by this fucking Boston law firm, and unfortunately for our Benz, it had fucking the Dulles brothers that were also investors. CIA, right? State Department. The Dulles brothers were like fucking part of the royalty. The Dulleses go back to the 1800s with their family being involved in government. And at this point, they're at the start of the CIA. They're fucking into fucking working with fucking Eisenhower. So they go, like, yo, you know what? Let's stage our own coup. And they stage a coup, right? And fucking get our Benz out of office. And Che just so happens to be there when it's happening, which then makes him flee to the Argentine embassy, and then from there he goes into Mexico City. Now, it's insane. I mean, again, it's instances and happenstance, right? He's there during the U.S. coup of our Benz in Guatemala, right? He's there during that coup, heads to his own embassy, and then from there heads to Mexico City. Right, and there was actually a part in the movie where they were in Machu Picchu, and the dude's like, "Yo, look, man," like telling him something in the newspaper about rebellion, revolution, and he's like, "Yo, man, revolution without bullets, I'm not in that." And that's one of the things that's always stood out to me. Revolution without bullets is not revolution.
Because you know what? At the end of the day, when I hear revolution, and I do believe that the only revolution is a violent revolution, I hear, you know, the changing. If a successful revolution is we're changing, we're revolving on this shit. You know what I'm saying? And for true change, there needs to be eradication in most, you know, instances. So I feel like, I will agree with that, especially when we're talking about liberation and
I remember when I was doing my master's here. I was doing my master's and I was taking this class, and it's funny because what I remember was the ultimate backlash when the professor's like, you know, he said Martin Luther King was revolutionary. I was like, I don't agree. What do you mean? I was like, man, look what he's saying. He's talking about the incorporation into the system.
Right.
Equality within the system that is obviously not equal. But what I remember the most is this white chick that was like, what are you talking about? I was like, what are you talking about? What the fuck is it? Like, this bitch got mad silent. Bitch, what are you talking about? I'm like, yo, man. And then I was like, yo, revolution to me means, you know, the destruction of a system that set up such unequal portions that your incorporation into something that is already unequal is not revolution. You just want to join it, but you're not going to join it full throttle because you're not going to be incorporated properly.
Right.
But her look, I haven't seen this bitch in 20 years, but I remember her look at me was like so disgusting. And I was like, you crack, that's cracking. What the fuck you talking about, right? So he gets to Mexico City, and he meets Cubans. And the Cubans are like, yeah, man, we're here because we just got fucking thrown out of fucking Cuba for trying to start a revolution with bullets. And he meets Fidel Castro. Now, the story goes, I mean, there's not a lot of things that came out of that room. But the story goes that him and Fidel get into a room and they discuss Latin American history. They discuss politics. I think like a day, just them in the room, just talking. Right. Comes up. He then joins Fidel's group that is being trained in Mexico City to head back to Cuba in order to fight the armed struggle. They go on this boat called the Granma. There are 82 people. They did not know how to navigate this boat. The boat overshoots its landing. They land in a place where it was not the opportune place to land. In the lower, in the southern eastern part of the island. The army's waiting for them. Dudes die. They all get separated. But now you have this guy, Ernesto Guevara, in a place he's never fucking been, picking up a gun. He fucking tosses his medical bag because he joined as their doctor. Tosses his medical bag and joins the ranks of a soldier. Right. In the mountains. Once he gets situated, they find each other. He is, again, a very essential component into communicating to the peasants in Cuba about the revolution. He helps them start radio. He helps with the newspaper. He is a very important part of creating literacy classes because the overwhelming population of Cuba was fucking illiterate. And training of the soldiers, strategic application of guerrilla warfare, guerrilla tactics. Comes out with a book in 1961 called Guerrilla Tactics, Guerrilla Warfare. Becomes, what we call the comandante, right? Commander in the fight against the dictatorship. Right, and stood out. Obviously, people were like, "Yo, what the fuck? What is this guy? He don't speak our kind of Spanish," and that's why he took on the name Che, because everybody's like, "Yo, he says the word Che a lot." But what's wild is that as a fucking asthmatic in Cuba, I mean, you'll do it tropical. My man, as a person who got mosquito fever back in 1991, I went to DR and I got bit up so bad I had a fucking fever and almost died.
Damn.
He figured out that the cigars would keep the mosquitoes away. So as an asthmatic, he chose to smoke cigars rather than constantly be on the pump, right? On the asthma pump and be bit by mosquitoes. So he became a heavy fucking cigar smoker, right? And once the revolution triumphed, he became again a big portion of reconstructing the society, right? In the sense of labor programs, volunteer labor programs. He became head of the fucking of the bank. But his straightforwardness was what really was a thing that led to his downfall. In 1964, in Algiers, he made a speech because Cuba obviously gets into beef with the United States. The United States says, hey, you guys are fucking communists. Cuba gets into a relationship with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union starts to buy Cuban sugar at a very high rate beyond the global market and gives Cuba oil, which they then are refining in U.S. refineries, which was the initial beef. They didn't want to refine Soviet oil. Very childish. So, but Che was always a person that was like, yo, the leading communist nations have to be the defenders of the revolution worldwide. And in 64, he makes a speech in Algiers, and he says, yo, the Soviet Union is nothing but a bourgeois state, and they themselves are imperialists. They are not true revolutionaries. This shit, Khrushchev was like, yo, what's up with your fucking boy Fidel? And that shit led to a little tear. They were like, yo, get rid of that motherfucker. And then he says, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to go to Africa and start revolution. In 1961, in the Congo, Patrice Lumumba was assassinated by the CIA. This is an actual fact. By the CIA. Che goes out there 4 years later. That revolutionary struggle was a facade of what it was before. He attempts to create revolution there, but the elements of revolution were not there. People were not, disciplined. So he leaves, comes back to Cuba. But he was not done yet. And he says, yo, I want to keep... It's the thing that he kept wanting to feed revolution. His idea of revolution never, ever, ever, ever died. He kept wanting to feed revolution. He met with fucking mad... this again, the 1960s was a decade in which African liberation movement were in full throttle. They were breaking away from the chains of European colonialism. So he was an avid fucking representative of independent African nations. And people saw him. I mean, he met with everybody. Fucking Mao, Nasser. I mean, he was flying all over the world as a Cuban representative. They actually, in the Constitution, created a clause for him that would make him a Cuban citizen.
He's honorary.
It was like, it said, if you had fought in the revolutionary struggle in the ranks of Comandante, you are a Cuban citizen. It was like, that's only him.
Right, literally, that's only him. Damn.
Yeah, it's only him. But he goes and becomes this image of global revolution. I mean, and it's the 60s, right? So one of his famous things was like, yo, man, what we need around the world is like 3-4 more Vietnams. We have to keep the capitalist system on its toes militarily. This is not a man that was like, yo, man, we gotta do it with prayer to God. Nah, man, we gotta fight, and if we gotta die for it, we gotta die.
Right.
So the African thing did not work out. Again, there's something that came out years later because no one knew where the fuck he's at. But his face is now all over the world, bro. France, the U.S., right? Cuba is working with the Black liberation struggle here in the U.S. So you have Black Panthers waving around Che Guevara's face, right? The Caribbean, South America. And this then leads Kennedy in 1961 to begin the Progress for Alliance, right? Which is a fucking a hemispheric program that says that you will not recognize Cuba, right? So he makes Latin America turn his back on Cuba. This is a crazy time, bro.
That sounds wild.
It's a wild thing, right? And so then in 1966, he returned. I mean, he after the Congo, he goes to like Prague, another fucking like privileged thing. Goes to Prague, licks his wounds, kind of contacts his Soviet contacts and shit. A lot of spy shit, which is a wild. I mean, this is not in the movie, guys. This is not in the movie, but has his contacts and starts designing where else he's gonna go. He returns to Cuba, gets his group together, trains them, and then heads into Bolivia. But here's the problem. This time in the world, there were two huge factions of communism on the planet. And that was Chinese communism and Soviet communism. And the Maoist movement and the Leninist-Stalinist movement. And unfortunately, his contacts were still through Moscow, which then lead him into the hands of people who were like, yo, we don't agree with what you said about fucking Moscow, all this shit. So that fucking mission was shit from the beginning. Eventually gets him caught in October of 67. But the beautiful thing is, right before he fucking dies, he's already caught. His people are dead. He's been shot, and he gets into he get out of Bolivia into this little fucking school. There was only one fucking room, and he tells the woman, he's like, "Yo, when they let me out of this, I'm gonna fucking build a whole new school for you guys. I'm gonna build you a hospital. I'm gonna bring you guys out of economic disparity." And she's like, "Okay." and the next person to walk into the room, directed by that faggot Felix Rodriguez, a CIA operative, that a Cuban dude that was part of the fucking Bay of Pigs. He sends some fucking dickhead in there because the guy was like, yo, it's my birthday. He's like, yo, so you go and shoot him. And Che gets up, runs to the guy shoots him and fucking kills him. They take his body, they display that shit in a fucking laundromat. Then they chop his body up and ship that shit all over fucking Bolivia.
Okay, now that is also a very big. It's a big marker, signifier of British colonialism, because that's exactly what happened to William Wallace. That's exactly what happened in that.
Hold up. Yo, most people don't fucking recognize that.
Right.
That's a great fucking observation. You did that shit mad quick, because I try to make that same observation. So, that is a big thing about colonialism, right? Because the Spanish did that shit as well. Before the British, right? It was like, yo, we are going to do this for future generations to understand our power. Good job, bro.
Man. I remember we got a review. If we're gonna eventually, we'll get into that. There's it's a movie called The Outlaw King, and it's the story of Robert the Bruce, and that's the saga that came after William Wallace, directly after William Wallace. And there's a point where they find out that William Wallace is dead, and the Scottish people are in, they're grieving, and they send him everywhere.
Yeah,
they cut him up. They sent him everywhere. His head was hanging from the London Bridge for a long time.
Yeah. So that was 1967. So for 30 years, right? It was. We knew Che was dead. They even sent in U.S. Rangers to train the Bolivians and shit. This is a very big U.S. operation. And in 1997, they with the help of the Bolivian government, they finally locate Che's bones, and they fly them into Cuba. And this is when it comes, like, I remember this shit, like, it came out in papers, like, oh, check out his bones flying to Cuba. I was like, oh, shit. Like I had no idea who he was, man. I was very young. I was distracted. And it starts the fever of this idea of Che Guevara once again.
Right.
And I mean, there's still footage out there of the excavation, where they found his hands and like, I mean, I've been to the Che Guevara Memorial in Cuba, and it's fucking enormous. And I was there with some professor, and I was like, yeah, I don't think he would approve of this. And she was like, what? I was like, this man did not want this for himself. Like, he did not want to be idolized like this. And but it sparked the image of Che, which is then why we started getting books. And then this movie in 2004, and then the Steven Soderbergh 2-part Che movie. Right.
I didn't see it. I got to check that out. Is that the one with Benicio?
Yeah.
We should do that too, bro.
Yo, dude, I did I don't know how the fuck I did it, but I got fucking opening night, like, red carpet tickets for that shit.
Let's go.
And I took my boy, and it was like, yo, dude, they had the old intermission. I had to bring like 3 blunts. That shit was long as fuck, dude. Like, but that's what sparked the further interest, right? And then we started getting a lot of publications, a lot of people digging into primary and secondary sources to again kind of fucking reimagine the life of Che and what he did, and unfortunately, it kind of fucking made its way into the mainstream when people are like, yo, who's that guy on Jay-Z's shirt? And you're like, what the fuck?
Oh man, the boilerplate print.
Yeah,
it became bad.
I was like, dude,
that's how I figured out about him, though. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I seen him on a shirt, and I'm like, yo, why do I keep seeing this dude? And then I look into it, and you're like, oh, all right. Yeah. But that's the thing about America, man. We blow up the people 50 years later, we blow up the people that we were tearing down.
And the thing is, you have no idea who this man was, right?
Right.
And I mean, you Google Che and anything, and the first it's going to say Marxist, because he was a devout Marxist. He was like, I want to destroy the class system. For those who understand what Marxism is a destruction of classes and giving the mode of production, the things that we do, labor, the profits of labor, the end goal of labor, back to the laborers. This is not something that JC stands for. No. But it does remind me of, and it's cold hard distraction and ignorance. And it reminds me of one time with fucking, what's this motherfucker's name? From The Lock.
Jadakiss?
Yes. Thank you. Got it on the first try. Jadakiss. Look this up, people. He goes on Jimmy Kimmel with a fucking Ronald Reagan shirt. And Kimmel's like, why are you wearing a Reagan shirt? He's like, nah, man, I was born that. I was hanging out that era. He's like, are you a fan of Reagan? Like Kimmel's like, what the fuck you doing wearing that shirt? And he's like, nah, man. And just like trying to like wave it off. And it was like, do you not understand the symbolism behind what you're wearing?
I think a lot of times it gets boiled down to its fashion. It looks cool. I like the way it looks. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yeah. But we don't. It's so strange, man. We don't really.
Yeah. But that's an issue. It's like, yo, look, me. I respect. One of the dopest things I've ever respected from my mom is that my mom has always been like, yo, dude, all right, I don't know about that, so I'm not gonna act like I know.
Right.
And that's one thing that always helped my, I guess, humility, right? Because she's never, yo, man. Like, I remember approaching her, I was like, yo, man, why I gotta go to church? You never go. She's like, I learned all that shit back in the day. I'm like, but still, why the fuck I gotta go? Right? And like, she never made excuses. She's like, yo, man, you don't want to go, then don't go, but what the fuck? Don't put your ignorance out there for others to easily criticize. You know what I mean? It's just too goddamn easy.
At least guard that shit a little bit.
Yeah, at least act like you know.
Fake it till you make it, but you can't. Who knows? You might not never be smart.
Word. And live it that way, bro. So that's the story of Che Guevara. Obviously, there's much more. There's tons and tons of books.
I think we should do the second, the Steven Soderbergh one eventually. I think we should. Get that.
Definitely, man. Fucking, Benicio del Toro does. In fact, and what Steven Soderbergh does in that shit too is really go into again this altruistic image of Che Guevara, right? Like, there's a scene in that movie where his wife in Cuba is like riding around in this car, and she's like kind of enjoying it. Yeah, what the fuck you doing? She's like, oh no, you get a car because he's like, yo, I got a car because I'm a government official. You can't be riding this fucking car if you're not doing government shit.
Right.
Get the fuck out the car.
And like, yeah, because let's say his friend was in that position, his friend would have let that girl ride in that car.
Yeah, he was a disciplinary. All right. So there's also a book. It's a very short thing. I got that shit as well, right? Is this thing? This more like a pamphlet in a sense, but creating the new man, right? Creating a society that doesn't worship material. And that was his thing, right? Creating a person who only sees the incentives behind their contribution of labor. And that's fucking hard to even comprehend. We are a species that wants to accumulate material. And this is a person like, yo, man, it's idiotic. We should work like ants do as a community so that we all benefit versus accumulation in which there's going to be an obvious point of separation and others are going to have more than the masses and have you worship them for having more, which we're thriving in right now.
We're currently stewing in right now, yeah.
Of course, right? So his book, Creating the New Man, Socialist Man. I mean, it's a quick read. It's dope. And I mean, it gets a lot of criticism because people are like, yeah, that can't happen. And I was like, well, if you just realize that not all of us can consume or or acquire every single little thing. And it's just better for us to just have enough for us to live, but then have education, health, and security, and housing.
Right.
Then you should be satisfied. Where is that point of satisfaction?
I think it just gets blown up. It gets blown up, and the faster we get gratified, the faster we're able to go on Instagram and see what we want and the life that we can't live at the moment. Then the more we're gonna chase it, the more we're gonna chase it.
Yeah.
So how many buckets of popcorn do you
Buckets.
give?
I mean, listen, like I said, I hit you up yesterday. Send me that link, and I didn't hear from you, and I was like, I'm not gonna bother you, man. I thought, I went and I rented that shit for like $4, and I already saw it like 3 times before we even did this.
Right.
And again, because I read the book, reread it, and because I have a fucking Che Guevara tattoo on my arm. I'm going to express a bias here, but I'm going to go full 5 because anytime I see it on screen, I'm going to fucking watch it. And I've read so many fucking Che Guevara books in Spanish, English. It's bananas. It's maybe unfair, but that's my score. 5. The fatter Gene Sis school.
Listen, I rock with that. I will give it a 4.5 only because I haven't completed it, but I will complete it tonight while I get to my other tasks, just so I have it, I really liked it. I enjoyed very much the camera work. There's
nice. Oh man, we didn't get into that. Great job. Continue. I'm sorry.
There's specific shots.
Yeah. The black and whites and shit.
The black and whites when they're on the road. I really like the zoom out shots when they're on the road from a rear profile with the guitar. You think that the guitar is going to get into some type of like sentimental solo, but it's only one note. And then it's the next scene. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think it's about to be a travel montage, and it kind of begins, but then it goes to the next scene. And I thought that was smart.
I love the black and whites of the indigenous people, especially in Cusco. Quick story: 2005, I take that trip to Cusco. Now, again, the continent of Latin America is enormous, right? And the empire of the Incan people, which was the initial start of the conquering of this empire, started in the 1530s with the illiterate conquistador Francisco Pizarro. Then culminated in the 1540s, and the capital city of Cusco, which is inland like a motherfucker. Let me tell you the story. Fucking from Ecuador, Guayaquil, Ecuador, which is on the flatlands in the western part of Ecuador. I'm there. This is pre-fucking smartphones. And I'm like, yeah, I'll get a bus ticket. I'm gonna go. That shit was fucking 80 hours, nigga.
Goddamn.
80 fucking hours, my man. The shit that I've seen, I got into a fight. Dude, it was wild. 80 fucking hours to cross those Andes mountains. My man, I don't know how. And all I had was a Walkman and 3 tapes. It was one of the most...
80 hours, you got 80 hours out of them Walkman batteries?
Yo, my man.
Well,
in my book, I had at one point I had to stop because I just couldn't do it no more with the same music, right? And then my boy had a fucking Discman and he would not lend to me. So I had to find ways to entertain myself. I had a little diary and shit I wrote, and I was reading the whole time. And but the point is, she was 80 fucking hours, bro. We get to Cusco, right? And then to get to like that point where you see them in in Machu Picchu, it's fucking very high up there, being the mountains, man. Like I was with my boys, I'm over here smoking, and he's like, I can't breathe, and I'm over here fucking smoking cigarettes. He's getting tight at me, and the only thing that would fucking help was coca leaves, right? You make coca leaves and then make a nice little tea and shit, and that would fucking help your breathing. But the Cusco, the city, to get to Machu Picchu, this all stone city that they had established, was a 3-hour train ride in this like 1920s fucking British train. We get there. Once we get there, it's a fucking 45-minute bus ride. You're like, yeah, you could climb the mountain. It's gonna take you 2.5 hours. Like, man, eat a dick, B. Fuck out of here. I'm over here fucking smoking fucking Peruvian weed that I found out there. So I'm like, yeah, nah, man, take a bus. Go all the way up, and you're in the clouds, right? You're in the clouds, yo. You feel the clouds. Like, holy shit, dude.
I fucking hate heights.
And you can stare down like hundreds and hundreds into this river. I'm like, yo, how the fuck these people built this shit? There's irrigation systems and all this shit. You know what ruins it? I'm there, and this fat white bitch goes into her bag, and that bitch pulls out a fucking Elvis Presley doll, which she plops right in front of us and starts taking pictures of the Elvis Presley doll in this fucking historical, indigenous, centuries-old site.
Fucking disrespect, bro.
Horrible. Yo, my man, talk about the disrespect, doggy. Yeah, it's insane. But it's a fucking it's a beyond the wild trip, but it's a true understanding of what European colonization did to that continent.
The effect, the
ramifications. Yeah, I mean, the poverty you see. I mean, we spent some days there, and I remember I had this camera, and this woman was like, begging on the street, and she was like walking away. And I tried to take a picture because she had her 2 kids. And, man, I tried to take a picture of her, and one of her fucking kids, threw a fucking spoon at me.
Damn.
And hit me. And I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, perdóname. And I was like, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm like, you're not fucking your people. And I was so fucking apologetic, dude. Like, people, and you see people walking around like, and just like, taking pictures of these like century-year-old fucking cathedrals. And I mean, the architecture is, wild. Which is another point. In 1781, there was a rebellion there, the Tupac Amaru Rebellion, right? Tupac Amaru II. There was a revolution there from 1780 to 1781. He gets caught, brought to that place where I was at in Cusco. He is tortured and again dismantled. His head is sent to one part of Peru, his hands to another part. Yo, man, same thing. We're talking about colonial punishment. His wife, his children, his tongue was slit. Yo, man, very, very simple.
They did something, similar to Nat Turner. When you talk about the effect of what happened here, he was I believe it's called drawn and quartered.
Yep.
And after he was pulled apart, they flayed him, which means they cut the meat down to the bone, and they used a large amount of his body fat for wagon grease. So this is the ghastly shit that was going on. You know what I'm saying? This was the punishment that they would think of. Some of the punishment is so out there that that this is just shock value punishment.
Yeah. Again,
you know what I'm saying?
To influence others not to rebel.
To quell the rebellion, for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, especially when it comes to like the Nat Turner rebellion. I mean, I would love for there to be a film that we can discuss surrounding that
There's
situation.
a film called The Birth of a Nation.
The 1921 joint?
No,
What?
new one. A new one, sir.
Did not know that.
You didn't hear about it because they fucking blackballed it.
Distraction. Holy shit. That is all right. Because there is such a historical influence from the Caribbean and the Spanish Empire that leads to that Nat Turner rebellion.
And,
wow.
And it's made by a black man. It was directed by the dude who stars as Nat Turner. He directed it, starred in it, and it got blackballed.
Get the fuck up. Yeah, I think I'm going to watch that tonight.
Watch it. Let me know what you think. We'll run it.
Yeah.
We'll run it if you want to.
I would love to run that, dude, because there are very few scholars out there that even discuss the Nat Turner revolution.
Right.
You know what's wild? There is a scholar by the name of Norman Finkelstein that he is from Brooklyn, Jewish, parents survived the Holocaust, but he is one of the leading scholars
in Egyptology.
In the Israel-Gaza situation. And when this happened on October 7th, he made a comparison to what the Palestinians did to the fucking Nat Turner rebellion. He's like, yo, you've been oppressing these people. And it's wild because he's always called a self-loathing Jew. And he's like, I'm not a self-loathing Jew. I just observe what's correct. Right. What's history? You've been punishing these people, oppressing them, and they rebel, and you get mad?
Right.
And one of the other people who does a fantastic job is Gerald Horn, this professor at a fucking University of Texas. I'm fucking that up. But he does a wonderful job on providing historical context for that situation. Wow. I'm going to check that out. Birth of a Nation, yo. I'll pay for that.
Check out Birth of a Nation. So what is next week's assignment, sir?
Wow. You know what's crazy? I was having so much fun, and I'm still like, reveling in my fight victory on Friday. That I didn't fucking ponder it. You know what? I'm gonna put it in your court. What do you think should be the next week's movie?
I remember we were talking about doing the 3-piece boxer.
Yes. Which we said was gonna be. You know what we do? We said it was gonna be Dickstown,
right?
The Hurricane
and Chuck.
And Chuck.
Right.
That's it.
All right. So Dickstown, Hurricane, and Chuck.
Yes, because they incorporate not only the sport of boxing, but racial inequality, fucking the griminess behind the boxing industry, and then it could open us up to conversations about the really fucking disgusting business model behind boxing, dude.
And how it's only for profit.
Oh, come on.
And how many governing bodies do we need? Right. No, I agree with you. Yeah, we could definitely get into that.
People still, I mean, to this day, it's like, yo, man, do you realize that it's there used to be fucking boxing matches right here in Yankee Stadium, down the block from me. There were 75 rounds in the fucking summer. Come on, man. Yep. 75 rounds.
Motherfuckers used to fight bare knuckle, bro.
Yeah, pure savagery. Pure savagery.
You know? Fucking Roman shit, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Without the Tigers.
But listen, great episode, great movie. I'm gonna finish that. Yeah, and we're moving right along.
Join us next week, man. Nice campus distraction. Nice Rhinoceros funk. Come on, man. Mug. The Guru, where you at?
Guru, where you at?
Yeah. Join us next week where we're going to break down, again, Dickstown, motherfucking Hurricane, and Chuck. Can't wait to talk about Motherfucking Lou Gossett Jr. knocking motherfuckers out.
Knocking motherfuckers out. And don't forget, you can catch me on Gorilla Group Radio this Tuesday.
Yes.
Okay. Tap in through the usual channels. I will be on the show.
Yeah.
We will be talking everything from movies to good hip hop to shitty hip hop to jaywalking and all the other things.
Word, B. Right. And especially people who don't know how to bake.
There you go. For all y'all non-baking ass motherfuckers, stay out the kitchen. Gray area. Peace.
Peace.
Perhaps I don't want what you think I want. And if there's nothing you can give me, perhaps there is something that I can give you.